right, guys. So for today's math assignment, originally I was going to have you work on this, but excuse me, I decided that I want you to just throw this away because it goes all the way up to the thousands place, and I don't want to start there. I want to start on a sheet with the hundreds place. So in your folder, if you see a worksheet that says place value conversion 4 digits, sheet 1, you can throw it away. What you will get is out of your reward packet, there is a sheet that is titled Convert Between Place Values 3 Digits, and it says sheet 2. Make sure you get the right one because directly before that is the same title except this one says sheet 1. I want you to get sheet 2, and we're going to work on that together. Okay. So something else you'll need, so you need this worksheet. You also need to cut or rip 11 squares of little squares like this so that you can put digits on here like this. Of course, if we were in school, I would just have this for you, but you being at home, we make adjustments, right? So number them 1 through 9, like you see here, and then you need 2 zeros. Okay? The focus is our place value. We're only going to go up, like our place value system. We're going to talk about the ones, the tens, the hundreds. And this word convert means to change. So we're changing the place value, or between our place values. Let me show you money to really kind of set the framework for what I'm going to talk about, okay? And I'll relate money to number 1 actually. So number 1 says you have 4 tens. How many ones will that be? That equal sign means we're going to have a balance, okay? It's going to be the same value on each side, except it's just going to be expressed a little bit differently. So 4 tens equals how many ones? So let's think about this in terms of money. Where's my stuff? You would agree that I have 4 tens here, right? I have 4 tens, and we know that that would equal a value of $40, right? For every $10 bill, I'm going to set down 10 $1 bills, right? So 1 $10 bill, 10 $1 bill. This is like our notes from the other day where we said that 110 is the same amount as 10 ones, right? So if I include another 10, I'm going to include another set of ones. So that was 10 more. So counting by tens, that would go up to 20. Okay. Here's another $10. So I'm going to include another set of 10. So counting up by 20, that will be 30. I'm sure you're hopefully starting to see the pattern, right? And that should be 3. And then if I put my final 10, so that's 4 tens. Here's another set of 10 ones. So it took $41 bills to equal the same amount as 4 $10 bills. We have a smaller number in front of the place value 10 because 10 is worth more, right? We have a larger number in front of this place value name because ones are going to be smaller than tens. So if you're dealing with a smaller place value, your number is going to get bigger right here. If you're dealing with a larger place value, your number will be smaller. So we're going to deal with the ones, the tens, and the hundreds. And you can always kind of think back to money, okay? So what I want you to do on your whiteboard, which everybody has in their binder, and you have 2 expo markers, okay? I want you to quickly write a place value chart. H for hundreds, T for tens, 0 for ones. And we have these squares now so that we can move them around on this place value chart. So question 1 says 4 tens. So I'm going to find the 4 and I'm going to put it in the tens. And just like when we were rounding and using our place value chart, we don't just let this, you know, a smaller place value randomly be empty. We put a placeholder in there. Okay? So this says 0 ones and 4 tens right now. Okay, we don't know how many ones will make up 4 tens, but we're gonna find out. Okay, tens is bigger; it's a bigger place value than ones, so we know that this number right here needs to be larger than 4, but it also does have to have a 4 in it. All we're gonna do when we're trying to figure out how many ones is the same as 4 tens is take this 4 and shift it to the place value that we're working with. So our answer will be 41s. 41s is the same thing as 4 tens. Just like all this money, right? 41s is the same thing as 4 tens. There's a fourth one right there. So we're gonna write 40. Number 2, 800 ones equals how many hundreds? There's 800 ones, and I know right now it might look a little funky, but we're just doing this to be able to figure it out, okay? We know that normally we wouldn't necessarily keep that number like that. We're moving from a smaller place value to a larger place value, which means that this number that we're going to put in front of the hundreds is going to be smaller than 800, but it must include an 8, okay? And here's what we do. When we're going from small place value to larger, we're just going to shift these the other way. So I'm going to pull from the front here, okay? This 0 will stay here. Now I have 80 tens, okay? Now this 0 will stay. And now I have 8 hundreds. So 800 ones equals 8 hundreds. Number 3. Don't worry, don't stress yourself out if all of a sudden the blank is at the beginning, okay? You can still just make 60 tens. I need that there. Okay, so we have 60 tens. We want to see how many hundreds that would be. Well, just like we did with number 2, okay? We're technically going from a smaller place value to a larger, so we're going to shift our squares towards that larger place value. So leave the 0 and take the 6. So 60 tens is the same as 6 hundreds. And number 4 is just like that, right? We have the space, the blank line at the beginning. Well, let's go ahead and make 8 tens. There's 8 tens, and I need a place value holder in my smaller place values, okay? We want to find out if we have 8 tens, how many ones does that make? Well, we're going, tens is bigger than 1, so we know that the number that's going to be on that line is going to be bigger than 8. Just shift this over. And that's our answer, 80 ones. Number 5, 80 tens equals how many hundreds? So that shows 80 tens, and we need our place value holder in the smaller place value. We want to know how many hundreds. Take this front square and shift it into the hundreds, okay? So 80 tens is the same as 8 hundreds. Number 6, 5 hundreds equals how many ones? This model right here shows 5 hundreds. We have 5 in the hundreds, and then we have 2 place value holders still. We want to know how many ones this would be. So we're going to go from a larger place value to a smaller place value. So the number that's going to go on this line in front of the ones needs to be bigger than that 5, but it's also going to include the 5 still. If we want to find out how many ones, all we do is shift everything into the ones. So it would be 500 ones. So I'm going to want you to complete 9 through 12. This is part of your review or reward packet. And next I'm going to talk about these types of problems. It says, here are some ways of writing the number 156. So let's go ahead and make the number 156 on here. So this is one way of making 156. And if we were allowed to include the hundreds, the tens, the ones, we would write it just like this, right? There is 100, 5 tens, and 6 ones. But now what happens if we only want to write it as ones? We'll take that 156 and we shift them all the way to the ones place. And so that's how they got the answer that 156 equals 156 ones. Let's go ahead and put them back. What if we have to fill it out and it's like, tell me how many hundreds are there and how many ones? So don't include the tens. But we can't just ignore that tens digit, okay? We still have to make sure it's part of something. So we'll move it to the smaller place value. So if we can keep the hundreds and we have 100s, but we don't want to include the tens, we're just going to shift that tens over into the ones. So we would have 100, which the value is that, right? Plus 0 tens, plus 56 ones is still going to give us 156. Now, what if we're not going to include the hundreds? So let's make 156 again. We want to know if you had to only include tens and ones, what would this be? So 156 into tens and ones. Well, we're just going to shift that group of hundreds into here. And that's the same thing as saying 0 plus 15 tens. We have 15 tens, just like that, because that's technically 15 times 10, plus 6 ones. Well, 150 plus 6 is still going to give us 156. So let's give it a try on 234. So you're going to make this number, make 234. So for the first one, we're going to fill in the missing parts. We're allowed to include all 3 place values. So what is the amount of hundreds, tens, and ones? We can just simply take a look at what we have here. We have 2 hundreds, 3 tens, and 4 ones. Let's do this. What if we only are allowed to include ones? Well, we're just going to shift these all over into the ones. And we would say that we have 234 ones. The next one, how would you write this if you could only include hundreds and ones? Well, we're going to move the tens to the smaller place value. Okay. So we would have 2 hundreds and 34 ones. And then the last one, what if you're only allowed to include the tens and the ones? So 234, how many tens would that be? So we're not going to include the hundreds. So let's shift that there. We'd have 23 tens and 4 ones. So I'm going to leave this last one for you to do here. And then this will also help you with the page in your reward packet that comes before that. You can use these same squares to complete that page. We've talked a lot about how math is just a bunch of patterns, okay? So we're getting started with talking about this pattern of place values and converting between them. And then, of course, you can always pause and rewind and rewatch this if I went just a little bit too fast, okay? All right, bye-bye.